Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta. This is our Halloween service where we will be celebrating this sacred and secular season, incorporating traditions of Halloween, Samhain, All Saints' Day, All Souls' Day, and Dia de los Muertos. But we'll begin by a few announcements from our board secretary, Marcia Frank. Marcia, do you have our announcements?
I do. I'm sorry. I forgot I was muted. So I'll just start this again. Sorry, everyone. Social Justice Committee is going to meet today at 1 o'clock online Zoom meeting. Contact Tim Hunter if you'd like to come to the Social Justice Committee meeting. This afternoon at 7, Full Moon Vespers is going to be meeting on the playground for Samhain. And it's a solemn ceremony with recommended dress, and it's not recommended for young children. Face coverings are required. And there's a Zoom link for this in the announcements, and you can talk to Jezibell for any other information. Our regular Monday meditation group will be meeting online, a Zoom meeting. It's from 7 to 8:30, and you could talk to E. McNabb or Melanie Roberts for information on this. We have our regular board of trustees meeting this Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Alan George is who you would contact if you would like to attend, and this is on Zoom. All members are invited to attend the board meeting if they would like to. If you have something you'd like to put in the newsletter, the deadline for that is tomorrow, Monday, October 26th. As noted in the October newsletter, Reverend Don and the board has appointed a task force to coordinate small group meetings to share what we have in common and what future we want to build together. And we're calling these meetings listening circles. The first step in forming these circles is to determine when everyone is available to meet. So on Monday, on November 2nd, look for an email from the UCA with a link to a short survey. And that survey is just going to ask when is the best time for you guys to meet. The greater participation and the better information help us build a better future for our church. Okay, we have a fundraiser for Golden Harvest Food Bank, and this is the last week. The name of this is Spooky to Be Hungry, and the proceeds go to the Golden Harvest Food Bank. For that, you would contact Jan Parsons, but there is also a PayPal link for that. As far as our reopening our church, the church remains right now in phase 3 of the reopening guidelines. Let your board liaison or church administrator know if you wish to meet at the church. Please be aware that if cases begin to rise again, the church may go back to phase 2, and face-to-face meetings within the building will have to stop. And currently it does seem like things are going up, but we don't have any definitive word. As for right now, we are still in phase 2 of the reopening. And Ted would like us to know to remember to get our flu immunizations. And a lot of places are giving them for free. So I will mention that from him. Thank you very much. Enjoy the service.
Thank you, Marcia. And now, as we are also enjoying the bounty of our harvest season, you may see our pumpkin on our display. Let us now enter into a time of worship with our opening hymn by David Neshness.
Good morning. Our opening hymn this morning is Heap High, the Farmer's Wintry Horde, number 70 in your hymnals. I don't think we've ever sung this, but we sung the melody plenty of times for other hymns. And I played it during the prelude, so hopefully you'll be able to sing along. Heap high the farmer's wintry hoard, heap high the rolling corn, nor rich a gift as autumn poured from out the lavish bourne. Through veils of grass and weeds of flowers are clouds that furrows made, and frighting from our sprouting grain, the robber crows away. We dropped the long night days of June beneath the sun of May, and frightened from our sprouting grain, the robber crows away. All through the long days of June beneath the sun of May, and frightened from our sprouting grain, the robber crows away. All through and out in autumn's moonlit nights, its harvest time has come. We lock away the frosted hills, and there the treasures go.
Now, as our ancestors gathered around their bonfires, so do we gather around our chalice and kindle the flame of memory. Though this is the season of death, we also begin with our spirit of life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart of stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots holy coast, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Life and death is our cycle. Growing, dying, rebirth, regeneration. And so this service honors that cycle of life. The order is going to be a little different, and we'll begin with a reading of a poem that I wrote called "Why Do We Dress Up This Time of Year" by B. Childs.
You or not, beyond the limits of rule and thought. For some this is simply a chance to be merry, to go out and collect all the treats they can carry. But these costumes are more than make-believe. They are part of the web we weave. The night grows long, the wind blows cold, and we celebrate a holiday that's very old. When the leaves are turning to yellow and red, it's Halloween, Samhain, Day of the Dead. The summer is gone, the harvest is stored, and we honor the ones who have gone before. They have now passed on and their souls are free, so we remember their lives and their deeds. And now some believe the dead return from tomb, from grave, from coffin and urn, perhaps as ghosts, perhaps as spirits, a rustling in the wind for those who can hear it. We decorate our altars to greet them. We offer the bread as we meet them. Our costumes, our masks are more than a game as we share those memories and speak their names. Once people would dress as spirits of the night, as ghosts and skeletons by candlelight, first to guide the dead on their way, and then for merriment and play. For when the dead return to the earth, it's time for reverence, a time for mirth, and we still hold them in our hearts, even though they must depart. And we can remember the people we knew as they enter the gate that we all pass through. But we can respond with love, not fear, and so we dress up at this time of year.
This church, our buildings and ground, are a gift from those who went before us, our founding members, those who worked to establish and grow this church. And we honor them by keeping it flourishing, keeping our chalice lit for the future generations. And the way we can do that is by our generosity, contributing from our fall harvest into the coffers of our church to ensure that their legacy that we are adding to by our presence and our work can continue into the future. So now we humbly ask for your generosity and support. We thank you for your generous contributions to ensure our future. And so, this holiday has a very sacred aspect. Knowledge of death is one of the things that makes us fully human. We have found prehistoric burial sites where there is obviously some awareness that death interrupted life, that there was some semblance of what went on afterwards, and many cultures have tried to interpret that. We have stories of the judgment of Osiris, Hades, Valhalla, heaven and hell in the Christian tradition, as well as concepts that perhaps there is nothing or that perhaps we reincarnate. We don't know, but many, many cultures celebrate their ancestors, and often they are even a form of deity, those that brought us here, and all of us who are alive now have ancient ancestors. Modern pagans celebrate the holiday of Samhain. That is spelled Samhain. It is not Samhain. In Gaelic, the MH pronunciation is a W or occasionally a V. And within modern paganism, it has become the most important holiday, a time of feasts of the dead, honoring the ancestors, a time of divination, a time of fires. It's traced back to an ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. This was a harvest festival that marked the beginning of winter. We are not sure how the ancients celebrated. There is a popular story that the Druids would kindle this great fire and all the households would extinguish their fires, and then they would take fires from the Druids and use those to relight their hearths. Beautiful story. Unfortunately, the source is a little questionable. It was an antiquarian of the 17th century named Geoffrey Keating, and his sources are not certain, and it's a lovely story, well written. And this gentleman, when he was writing, was endeavoring to promote Irish history and culture. And again, we don't know how much this actually happened. So some of the stories that trace it back exactly are a little questionable, but in modern paganism, it is very, very important. And certainly within the Christian church, there were festivals and feasts honoring the dead. Initially, a lot of these took place in the spring. And later on, they were moved to end of October, 1st of November. Dates over time get a little slippery. And as you know, there were different calendars coming in as well. So ultimately, what happened was the time of All Saints, which celebrated all of the Catholic saints, was fixed on November 1st. And actually, that was a Germanic tradition. It was not based on the Celtic sources. So even though we like to think that they moved it to that time of year for Samhain, we just don't have the actual historical documentation on that. And I'm enough of a stickler for research to say, let's not say it was true historically if it was not. And the Eastern churches still celebrate some of their festivals of the dead in the spring following Easter. And later within Christianity, the holiday of All Souls, which was for everyone to be celebrated, came about on November 2nd. So these were times when people were believed to talk to the dead, that they could also intercede with the dead, and there were festivals honoring them. And these have continued throughout Western culture. And even in America, we had a custom of picnicking on grave sites where it was believed that we could still celebrate our dead. And the culture to the south of us in Mexico, we are very familiar with the Dia de los Muertos celebrations. And a lot of you remember when our church would do the very elaborate Dia de los Muertos, we would have this whole area set up as a decorated ofrenda. We would even have marigolds in the aisle, and the children would make sugar skulls, and we would celebrate. The UUA now frowns on white congregations celebrating Dia de los Muertos, so we don't do the big celebration, even though ironically Spirit of Halloween now has all kinds of Dia de los Muertos costumes, and it is becoming more and more an aspect of popular culture. Because one thing to keep in mind is that these traditions do change and transmute and adapt over time. And the original celebration among the Aztec peoples of Mesoamerica actually took place in the summer. And it was a festival honoring their goddess Mictlantecuhtli. She was the lady of the underworld. She was the lady of bones. She was believed to have been sacrificed as a child, and then she ruled over Mictlan, which was the realm of the dead. And skeletons among the assets were seen as a symbol of rebirth and growth and fertility, so that Bikti-Kakiwatl was a nurturing force of taking care of the dead, and they were celebrated. And when the Spanish Catholics arrived in Mexico, they found this celebration. They initially tried to suppress it, but they eventually merged it with their All Saints, All Souls Day. So it evolved into this beautiful celebration of Dia de los Muertos, where you'll see the painted skulls and the flowers and a lot of dancing, singing, music and poetry. And the Lady of the Dead is now in a new guise, the La Katrina figures, where you often see the lovely lady who is the skeleton, often with the elaborate hats and flowers. And she was initially brought out as a more mocking figure to remind everyone that within death, we are all equal. For all our worldly possessions, for all our supposed status and privilege and all of the nonsense, all of that goes away in death. And that we are all the same before the final end. And so now, this is also a time where we remember those who have gone before. And I'm going to begin by lighting a candle on our altar. This is in honor of Michael Servetus, who is something of a UU martyr. He was burned at the stake in Geneva for celebrating the doctrine of the Trinity. We have a candle in his honor with the cross on one side and our chalice on the other. Now we will enter into a time of remembrance, and it's fitting that the younger generation begins, and Zaire Hunter has a reading for us. Is Zaire unmuted?
Yeah, okay. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the way we move forward with our lives and bring our world forward with us. It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. Those two were strengthened by what they had gone before. They too were drawn by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice, have not melted into dust and have not disappeared. They are with us today. The lives that they hold are steady. Their word reminds us and calls us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are the voices, their hands, their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living.
Thank you, Zaire. And part of our honoring of our departed is the memorial garden that we have towards the back of the garden of the church, and many people are not familiar with it. So for this service, we made a video written by Frank Dennison of the Memorial Garden Committee.
I'm Jenny Malizia from the Memorial Garden Committee. There are members on our committee who say they sometimes choke up when they walk out here to the Memorial Garden. They don't see names on stones. They see the people they have walked with, talked with, even marched with, and people they laughed with and cried with. Each of these names represent unique individuals, as we all are. But you can be sure they all had one thing in common. They all wanted this church to be a welcoming church. Like the name on this first stone, Peggy Kelly, a charter member of this church. Kay O'Hannison, who dared to help create the Open Door Kindergarten for all races. Cheryl Linsenmeyer, who we remember singing in the choir. Hoyt Goodson, a poet whom we still quote. Erica Pohl, beloved partner of our longtime music director, Joe Patchen. Janet Reichert, whose outspokenness often belied her quiet introspection. Don and Elaine Law, who offered their talents and good humor to us. These are the names of mothers, fathers, spouses, and friends, all who have come before us. Some we recognize as artists and poets, and some, well, as just plain rebels, rebels against injustice. They stood for what we all do, an inclusionary church, a church that welcomes all, seeking fairness, justice, and equity. So if you want to come out and sit somewhere pleasant and quiet and peace, then join these people in the same spirit and feel welcome. And if you want to know more about the UUCA Memorial Garden and help support us, you can ask me, our chair, Frank Dennison, who wrote this reflection, Richard Dillenbeck, or Hans Nitsch. Thank you.
Now, at this time of our service, you will all have the opportunity to share the names of those you have lost. Pat Lynch Hayes will start us off by honoring those who have passed on in this year.
Am I live?
You're on, Pat.
Okay, thanks. Now is the time in our service when we are usually invited to share the joys and sorrows that have recently come into our lives. Instead, today, we will pause to remember those loved ones who are no longer with us, at least bodily. I'll drop a stone for Kate Williams, another for Bill Morehouse, another for Erica Link, who died just this past week, and another, my heart kind of clutched watching Jenny do that beautiful video, for our dear Jenny, who lost her dad yesterday. If you wish to share the name of a departed loved one, please raise your hand. When I call your name, please turn on the video camera and unmute yourself. You will then show up on the screen and can share the name of the person you are remembering. When you have finished speaking, you will then be returned to the attendee list, muted and camera off. Marika,
Thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to remember my father at this time of year. He gave me the gift of living as if our spirits were joined. At least it felt that way. And I am forever grateful for what he gave to me as a father.
Barbara Bowen,
I'd like to remember my mother and father, Verna Jean Chase and Howard Chase. I still miss them very much.
Does anyone else wish to share a memory? I'm not seeing any more hands. Natalie Bowden. Natalia Bowden, sorry, Nat.
Thank you. I would like to honor my cousin, Kristen, who succumbed to brain cancer not too long ago, and we hold her in our memory and hearts, and her two young children, and also two colleagues who passed this year from USC Aiken, Doug Cook and Vicki Collins. And I'm very also sad to hear about Erica's death. It's very tragic to me. So holding all of them in my heart. Thank you.
Does anyone else have someone they wish to remember? I'd like to share a memory of my own of my dear sister Kathy, who left us way, way too soon. We send fond thoughts to all of us who are holding such memories in our hearts.
Thank you, Pat. And we now have a song in honor of those that we have lost. We have lost many in this country through COVID, as well as some of the natural disasters that have been hitting us, as well as the crime and injustice that has so unfairly targeted our Black population. So in that spirit, this is the song Breaths by Sweet Honey in the Rock, sung by Ruth Pendergrast and David Netches. Stephen is getting it.
More often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never loved. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees, they are in the groaning woods, they are in the crying grass, they are in the moon rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. With the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. Is the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's dress, they are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes, they are with us in this crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters.
Most of you know I am pagan, specifically Wiccan, and I often have people ask me, you know, you have this very somber celebration of Samhain. What do you think about all this Halloween stuff with trick-or-treating and costumes and people having all these parties and things? And I say, bring it on. Because sacred revelry is also a part of honoring our departed. Our loved ones don't want us to be mourning and miserable all the time. They want us to enjoy life while we have it. And so we have that dichotomy of this solemnity and yet this gaiety. And that is something within many, many pagan traditions, such as especially gods such as Dionysus, with drinking and celebration and dance and song. And even the Catholics have that to some extent with events like Mardi Gras, where you do go out and celebrate and cut loose. And this time of balancing with a lot of the solemn fasting and days of prayer, and yet also enjoying the great feasts. And Samhain actually means summer's end. It's at the end of the harvest season. And a lot of times you would be slaughtering some of the animals that would not make it through the winter. And for many people, this was your last chance to have fresh meat before everything was either preserved or frozen. And it was probably the last time of relatively decent weather. So we do know that the Irish Samhain celebrations did involve people gathering, telling stories, singing, having games, so that there was a lot of joy and revelry. And that in many, many mutations has come forward into our time of Halloween. And I always encourage grown-ups, dress up, have parties. It's a chance to get out of yourself and get out of ordinary consciousness. And that is very, very liberating for people as individually to kind of play with areas that they may not normally be comfortable playing with. And it is also a way of approaching death with love, not fear. A lot of times in some folklore, people would dress as skeletons so that the spirits who were wandering abroad would not take them with them. They were disguising themselves. It also became a way of identifying with them and understanding that it is not always that scary, that we can honor the departed and we can still live our lives. And that is often the energy in many, many songs that are about the departed, yet are very, very lively, as is our closing hymn, When the Saints Go Marching In. And I encourage you to celebrate this season and sing loudly with David. And if we were in here, we'd be up doing a conga line around the sanctuary, but you can get up and dance in your homes. Take it away, David.
Okay, When the Saints Go Marching In, I told the worship team that we didn't need any lyrics for the song because most of you know the song and you'll be able to pick it up from me. This song was first recorded, was originally dates to around 1900 and was recorded in 1923 by the Pembroke Jubilee Singers. Many, many different versions of this song. And there are some parts that people don't know, and I'm just going to start with one little part. I'm going to be rocking and rolling, and I hope you'll be clapping along and singing in your home. We are traveling in the footsteps of those who've come before. There will all be reunited on that new and sunlit shore. Here we go. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. When the sun, oh, when the sun refused to shine. Oh, when the sun refused to shine. Lord, I want to be in that number. When the sun refused to shine. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. When the stars, oh, when the stars begin to shine. Oh, when the stars begin to shine. Lord, I want to
David. Yes, I was dancing in here, trying not to sing along and mess up the audio. And now as we close, may the solemn rites of Samhain bring us wisdom from ancient lore. Blessed season of souls passing, honor those who have gone before. Glorious Dia de los Muertos, synthesis of many powers, hallowed season of death dancing, parades of skeletons and flowers. The merry time of Halloween cheers us in the waning year. Costumes, candy, trick-or-treating, revel as the ghosts draw near. And we continue the revelry with our postlude video. Feel free to sing and dance along with our monsters.
I was working in the lab late one night when my eyes beheld an eerie sight, when my monster from her slab began to rise, and suddenly, to my surprise, she did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. She did the monster mash in my laboratory in the castle east, in the master bedroom where the vampires feast. The ghouls all came from their humble abode to get a jolt from my electrode. They did the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash. They did the monster mash. The zombies were having fun. The party had just begun. The guests included Wolfman, Dracula, and his son. The scene was rocking, all were digging the sound. Igor chains backed by his baying hounds. The coffin bangers were about to arrive with their vocal group, the Crypt Kicker 5. They played the monster mash. It was a graveyard smash. You'll catch on in a flash. They played the monster mash. Out from his coffin, Drac's voice did ring. Seems he was troubled by just one thing. Threw open the lid and shook his fist and said, "Whatever happened to my Transylvania twist?" It's now the monster mash. And it's a graveyard smash. You'll catch on in a flash. It's now the monster mash. Well, everything's cool. Drac's a part of the band. And my monster mash, it's the hit of the land. For you, the living, this smash was meant to. When you get to my door, tell them Boris sent you. And you can monster mash. And do my graveyard smash. You'll catch on in a flash. And you can monster mash. Easy go. Mash good. There we go, you impetuous young boy.
And now we can promote everybody and talk.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, you guys can unmute.
Just about have everybody.
Yeah.
Just about. Looks like.
Jezibell, that was a great video. Congratulations to you and Joe.
That was terrific. How did you do that?
Well, we came into the sanctuary with a camera. And there's my Final Cut Pro has some cool editing things.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Jezibell, it was great.
Thank you.
No, really, save that.
So much
tape,
fun.
please.
Yeah, I'll probably be posting it